Today's topic, survival. I can't do the voice like I don't have enough gravel in my voice to do David Hayter from Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, but I wish that I did. I like this. This is one of my I think probably the best skill. Obviously, like to say survival skills is so broad. Where do you even begin? Like that's to begin like to start off. That's what I don't like, but I like the way it takes shape in Fallout New Vegas. Like I like the form where it almost just translates as like culinary arts but also like almost medicine, like kind of medicine. And I would say that somebody told me that survival is just hippie medicine, and I kind of disagree with that. Like I kind of get where they're coming from because it's like a holistic approach. But like yeah, I guess that's what it is. It's like holistic versus pharmaceutical. That's the difference between survival and medicine. So a lifestyle in which you eat good foods, take good care of your body, generally avoid danger, know to not sleep in the rain or in the cold, know how to make a fire to prevent that from happening, know how to make shelter. Essentially, if you can have this lifestyle where you're well fed and you're out of the elements, then you're a lot less likely to need the pharmaceuticals that you would be familiar with as a medicine man. So that's my justification for survival, and obviously that has a lot of relevance in real life today. The problem is, though, is today is like modern medical science and like what is good food anymore. Like for the longest time, I was kind of like getting into that crunchy mentality of like, oh, dyes are bad, seed oils are bad, this is bad, that's bad. But then it's like, this isn't an argument, but I was trying to make candy out of honey. One ingredient. Or two ingredients. It was gonna be water and honey, and then I'm gonna get it up to temperature. I'm gonna pour it in the molds. I'm gonna do that, and the texture wasn't great. It didn't taste that great. It was just too sweet, and it was just like, yeah, it's candy. You can tell it's candy, but it sucks. And I started thinking, I'm like, oh, this is how it started. Guys started going, how can I improve it? Well, let's throw a little gum in there, a little emulsifier. What if we found a way to make it chewy? What if we did this? What if we may have found a way to make it last forever? So I get how like the modern food culture probably came from a well-meaning place. There's obvious elements agreed, like in the water bottle industry with that Nestle guy. It's like saying water is not a human right or something. Yeah. But that's besides the point. If you want to improve your survival skill, I would say focus on those three main areas. Is like, do you know what clean water is and how to get it? You're going to need that to be healthy. Do you know what clean food is and how to get it and make it? You're going to need that to be healthy. And shelter, because excessive heat, cold, or bug bites, that's going to be the death of you too. So if you can dodge those three, I'd say you got a pretty good survival makeup. And even at 100, even at survival 100, obviously you can die. The naming of it implies that survival 100 is immortality, depending on your understanding of English. But I would argue that no, you're most capable. So I would argue that getting to survival 100 probably one of the easiest to do in real life because but how do you even measure it? Like most of the New Vegas skills. I've always had a lot of love for culinary arts. And before I decided to do this series on Fallout videos, I was gonna just kind of go into how like as a kid I got really obsessed with cooking. Same way I got obsessed with science. Like my life, you could kind of break it up into chapters as to whatever I was fixated on for that period of time. Was it Warhammer 40K? Was it Halo? Was it Battlefield 1? There's little micro ones in between. Was it my religious phase? Was it my anti-religious phase? Was it the political phase? Was it the anti-political phase? You know what I mean? And then you can, like I said, further compartmentalize it by be like, oh, was I in the art or was I in that? Like. Anyway, that's rambling. I'm sorry. Let's get to the point here. The meat. The meat is that there's a lot of good ways to learn how to cook. I just started with cookbooks, Food Network, that sort of thing. But if you want to build your survival skill today, I would just say start cooking. You can literally cook anything, and I'm sure on some level it's ultra fancy if you look at it through the right lens. So I won't start with that one. That's not the best start. You could get something novelty. I got the Stardew Valley cookbook. I got it as a gift from my girlfriend. I only use it. So these ones are you'll know pretty quickly. I would caution when you buy a cookbook, you should take a look and just see how accessible it is. See if these are things you want to make, and see if these are things like these are ingredients that you can get regularly at a cheap price that you're comfortable with. Ultimately, you want to revisit a cookbook a lot. I've gone through cookbooks where I cook everything in a cookbook. For example, I cooked everything except for some of the comically bad meals that are put on there on purpose in Baking Yesteryear by P. Dylan Hollis. I cooked everything in here with the exception of a section that he literally calls worst of the worst, which includes a spaghetti-o jello ring. Miss me with that. That's anti-survival. If you make that, That's negative survival, okay? Or it's really positive survival. Like you're a machine if you can eat that. You might need a perk to eat that. I think that's there's a perk for that in New Vegas. I forgot what it's called. Essentially, it like lets you eat like chips mixed with like soda and whiskey or something, like something vile. I don't know, but yeah. So I guess maybe it is a survival skill to be able to eat that. No disrespect to B. Dylan Hollis, not P. Dylan Hollis. My apologies. Great cookbook right there. I don't get anything for that. That one's really good. That's really accessible. Warning though, you're gonna have to make a lot of meringues, and you're gonna want a mixer if you're gonna be making meringues. And I have a mixer, and I don't want to be making meringues, so I'm happy to be done with that book. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I got this one for $4.99. I kind of ripped off part of the tag, but you can still make it out. I got this one for $5. I've made 3 of the pies out of it, and every time I made it, people were like, "Holy shit! Like what is that?" Like I've never had anything like that. And some of hers, you know, you got to make the pie crust for. Some of them you could just buy everything at the store. And the ones where I bought everything at the store, the pre-made everything, people thought it was awesome, and they thought I made it from the ground up, and it tasted better than anything ever. That probably says more about my cooking ability than anything else. But you know, you can really impress people with this stuff. And if you want to go really far, and this is actually where I started as a 10-year-old. I wanted this book as a 10-year-old. I asked for it I probably wasn't 10. I was getting out of 3rd grade, so I might have been 8 or 9. But this, you want to talk about fundamentals. You want to talk about like cooking as a science, like building up survival skills in a real way. How to sharpen a knife. This book essentially has everything on how to run a kitchen. You know, like any kind of meat, how to buy meat, what the cuts of meat are. I would argue in a lot of ways this is, if not the ultimate survival book. Oh, I should have got it. I have like a survival book. I have like a homesteading book that just is like one of those like general instruction, like how to bake bread, how to set traps, how to plant potatoes, how to keep potatoes going through the winter. Those are survival skill books. I wouldn't read them once. I'd buy those books and treasure them. I'm not a materialist man. I don't like to put too much value into objects. I don't like, I think that's like, I think it's spiritually weak. But you also have to recognize the material and what's valuable in the material. And I just don't see anything really more valuable long term than books. And I know that's really nerdy. I just love reading books, to quote Zach Hadel. You know, I don't mean to sound like that, but like it's pretty important. Which ones didn't I cover? You want ones that are really, you know, this is a really interesting insight into the Amish right here. So you think the Amish would be crunchy? You think they'd be no dyes, no anything, no corn syrups, no seed oils? They love that stuff. They're all into that. You know, I mean, what am I going to do? Go through, look at an example here. But this is a great book. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to disparage the Amish in any way. But what I'm getting at is that I guess survival is, I don't want to say by any means necessary and advocate for any kind of Machiavellianism when it comes to survival. Like, oh, eat a guy if you have to. No, like I'm not getting into that. I just mean like, you kind of have to decide what's your limit? Like, what's good survival? What's healthy living? What's healthy living to me, and how am I going to maintain that? That's the survival stat, in my opinion. I felt like, oh yeah, here you go. If you have no cooking ability, buy this. This is literally combining cans and pastas together. This is a book on how to make your own hamburger helpers, and it's built like a kid's book. And yeah, I also got this one as a kid. All the cookbooks I have, except for the Amish one, getting crazy in here. Getting a little bit crazy in here. Need to settle down. I mean, like, you know, this one's like how to make like cakes out of like things. Like this is barely cooking. But if you have a survival 0 or a survival 6 or 3 or something, start making stuff. The guides are right there, and you don't even have to buy any of this stuff anymore. I'm sure you could just find it online. But there's something nice about a cookbook. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna look for another one and then go through all the ads and someone's shitty blog and be like, oh, and wants to send you notifications. And yeah, I know you can ad block all that, use a different browser, blah blah blah. But it's just like, it's nice to have a cookbook, and it's just like, you know what, internet's dead, internet's gone, not on it. I'm in my kitchen, I'm cooking. I'm in another area. I read a book once, and it was on self-actualization. I can't remember his name, but you know, like some kind of syncretic guru. You know, a guy that didn't really follow any one religion, but you know, had like self-help camps and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you should join one of those, and all those guys are 100% right. But he had this concept that he called absolute, not absolute power. Yeah, I think it was called absolute power, which is a big, you know, that's a very bold word, especially when regarding spirituality. but he called it absolute power, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy goes, "Oh, I'm going to show you how to have absolute power." And he starts making bread. Everybody's like, "I don't get it. What's going on here?" And he's like, "Right now I'm making bread, and I have absolute power making bread. I'm fully invested in making this bread. I have absolute power." I think it might have been called true power, because absolute power is like, that implies godhood. I'm not saying that's. I mean, it's a very godly mindset, but it's not like true all powerful godhood if you want to get semantic about it. But essentially, that's what I like about cooking. When I'm cooking, I'm cooking. It's one of the few things I can do that with. So many other tasks. If I'm doing that, I'm doing that, and I'm thinking somewhere else, and I'm in three different states of mind, and I'm daydreaming, and I can't focus, and I'm thinking about blah blah blah. But when I'm cooking, and I like that, and it comes out so much better when I'm in that mind state. Um, I think this is from an anime I haven't seen. I've used the word flow state, and then somebody said a bunch of Japanese stuff, so I may have accidentally referenced an anime I didn't watch. But it really is like a flow state. And I got the idea from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but they don't call it flow state. The guy's talking about how to eat like a parfait right, so like it tastes the best, and that analogy can be applied to life and how to live it. Which is, I guess, kind of the basis of Taoism. But look at that, everything going back to religion. Shut the hell up, right? You want to build up survival? Cooking, I'd say, is first. Food is the king of drugs, in my opinion. You can quit all the other drugs, caffeine included. You can include them all, but food is always kind of have to be there. And unless you can kind of nip the addiction to food in the bud, that's your drug. So, like, if you have an addictive personality like myself, I've really only had success losing weight when I have an alternative to food to gorge myself on. Even if that's working out, as tough as that is, at least it's something. But, you know, in other ways to build up survival, I operate fully on wood heat. This has been a very cold start to a New York winter. We got lucky the last three winters. We got mostly slush and above freezing conditions. We've already had a couple bad ones already, and some pretty bad road conditions too where I live. And that's a reality. I'm not going to bitch about the weather like everybody else who lives here. It's like, look, man, you know how it is. You can figure it out in a year, and maybe five if you want to make a plot a range of how winters are. But like, winters are harsh here in upstate. You got to be ready for them, and you got to know how to make a fire. Like a lot of people around here, they rely on gas heat, electric heat, whatever. But like, I'm fully on wood heat, and that's a task. You never stop doing it. And if you just go, you know what, I don't feel like doing it tonight, I'm going to bed. You wake up freezing and you regret it. You're constantly accountable to yourself. I would argue that's a survival skill. If you were constantly accountable, which you are a human being, you are alive, you are accountable for something. And I think like today's civilization kind of allows us to be like, well, I specialize in one thing and everybody else can worry about the rest. Survival is knowing at the end of the day, you got to do it all if no one else is there. And, you got to cut down trees. I don't do that part of it. I buy split wood. I'm not saying I fell the trees myself and I split them myself, but one year I did buy log length and rented a wood splitter, and I did that. I didn't want to do it again. It wasn't cost effective. But you should know how to do it, because say all the infrastructure collapses, a lesser survival bill to go, man, I don't know how to chop down a tree and I'm not going to risk it. I guess I'll just burn twigs and never be as warm. That's the reality. You can do that too. That's also survival. But there's always a way to do it a little bit better, and I feel like a survival build strives for that. To the point where you're making like those fake like clay forts like those Indian guys were. They were like pretending they're making like, oh, I almost did a little racism there. We won't get into that. That's it's racism. It's good when it's funny. I'm gonna say it's not good, but it's okay when it's funny. How about that? Racism's okay when it's funny. You do it with any amount of hate, well, I see through it, and it's boring, and it's just being a bully at that point. But always when it's comedy and it's true comedy, that's fun. So, but either way, we won't do Indian voice. And then there's shelter. In the same way that I kind of advocated it in repair, you should know how to fix a shelter, and you should know what constitutes a shelter. It could be as simple as a tent. It could be as simple as a bunch of sticks with Spanish moss draped over it. You're gonna want to look out for that though, because there's like some kind of mite in there. So many people, like half of people I talk to, are like, Spanish moss is good for bedding. The other half is like, okay, get ready to basically have bed bugs times 1,000 that you can't see. I've heard both sides of it, so I don't use it. When I've had to, I've gone out, I've done some solo camping. Um, I prefer a tent. Some people go, I sleep under the stars, man. I'm hardcore. I'm ready for anything. Look, I'm happy in a tent with a gun. You know, bears are a real threat. You got me in a tent with a gun, it's fine. I'm out of the wind. I'm out of the water for the most part. You know, I mean, if you have a tent, why not use a tent? Some people want to go a step further, that's great. But then it's like, go another step and just sleep naked in the desert. You know, can you do that? I don't know. Maybe an ultra survival build could. It's about what you can do personally and how you do it. I guess the skill is what you can do. How you do it is up to you. I guess. Maybe that's wrong. If somebody wants to point out the flaw in that, you know, that's cool. Like I did that sounded like sarcastic. People say that now, like almost like defiantly. No, I seriously mean that. I mean like no, I mean that sounds reasonable to me. But if you find a fault with that, I'm open. Um, so yeah, you need heat, or you need warmth as a human being. You need warmth. That's part of survival. You need food and you need water. I'll count that as one. Um, well, you know that was stupid to count it as one because there you go. That's your three. That's your holy trinity of survival: food, water, shelter. You know, you need those things, and if you can procure them in an environment with less people, the better. Then that's a measure of your survival skill. Try camping. If that's not your cup of tea, try cooking. That will build up your survival skill. If that's not your cup of tea, I mean, I know some people are firebugs and they just like to have a fire in their backyard. They don't do anything else. They scroll in front of a fire, but they liked making that fire. That's survival too. Sure, why not? But probably has arguably more skill books than any other trade, and they're the most interesting to read for me, other than like science. So get out there, get survival, and the higher your survival stat is, I'd almost argue the more of an individual you are. Now I'm not saying I don't respect you if you're a specialist. That's not what I'm saying at all, and I'm not advocating that like we all have to be everymen or we're bad. I'm just saying like every man, woman should know how to take care of themselves. Obviously, children should be cared for, but every man and woman out there should know what's up. You know how to make a fire. Know you need a fire. Know you can't be having worms. You can't be eating raw meat to get the worms. You know, like there's anyway. And then now we're gonna get into a whole carnivore discussion about raw meat. I'm not a raw meat guy. I used to be a raw meat guy. I can't advocate for it. I look at raw meat guys the same way I look at vegans. They're just two extremists. You know, let's just be normal here. You know, we don't have to hang our hats on anything. We're enough as people. We don't need ideology to replace us. Anyway, I'm gonna head out on that. That was survival. Next episode, unarmed. It's kind of a weird note to end on, but we're going in order. So unarmed. All right, that was awful form. How about Fallout form? That's how I learned how to punch. Was Fallout games. I'm not saying that's how I still punch, but that's how I do it when I have to like pantomime it or just mime it. I don't know what pantomime means. Was that sounds like a dirty word. I'm gonna shut up now. See you guys.